I don't remember that scene. Feels like I'm forgetting something, like I forgot to do something last week. Oh! Hello and welcome to Glass Half Full Reviews. Hey, anyway, this is of course my Game of Thrones recap, and last week I didn't really have time to do an actual review, and I don't really have time this week either. So instead what I'm going to do is do a very quick 3-minute, and I'm going to force myself to keep to this, recap of The Mountain and the Viper, and then I'm going to do about 5 minutes on The Watchers on the Wall. So, okay. I'm ready to do this. This is not going to be a very long episode. All right, let's get going. Mountain and the Viper, go. All right, so there are 6 plot lines, so let's see if I can get through them. All right, so the whole thing with the Boltons and Theon. That worked for the most part for me. This is in fact the kind of Theon stuff that I find more interesting, the psychological after effects, and not the overwhelming amount of torture that he gets over and over again. Now, I don't know that we've really established that Moat Cailin is important at all. I mean, it is as a strategic thing, but it's more clear in the books. In the show, I think it's just yet another city, or we see it in the opening credits, but does it really mean anything? Not really. But that being said, I thought Alfie Allen playing Theon did just like such an amazing job with the Mindbender thing. It was just really great. And one of the things I also liked was the way they cut from the guy saying, "We're going to be okay, right?" And then immediately it cuts to him being flayed. I thought that was pretty good editing or directing. Probably a combination of the two of them. So that whole subplot worked pretty well. All right, let's move on. So my favorite part of the episode, definitely Arya laughing at the absurdity of everything. Oh man, I can't believe they got there and suddenly everyone that we thought we were going to help out, oh, whoops, it was all pointless. It's all pointless. And that sort of fits in with some of the themes that we've been seeing from Arya and the Hound's progression. The Hound gradually learning over time that like, it's just going to get getting worse. And Arya kind of sort of thinking, yeah, it is. Yes, it is. And this, we can see her going crazy. And I really like that, so I'm really looking forward to what's happening. Now, of course, the whole Sansa, Baelish, Robin thing, man, I go back and forth on this. Part of it is that Baelish seemed way too unprepared for the line of questioning, and I didn't buy that. His character, even the way that they portrayed him in the show, which isn't as smart as he was in the books, I just still feel like he just wasn't as smart as I would expect him to be. Come on. Of course they were going to ask him about Sansa. Of course they were going to ask him about what happened. I didn't like that. That being said, I really like what they did with Sansa. I thought she came across so well. It was so interesting to see her do this, to kind of turn it around, and it made sense to me. I've always been a Sansa supporter, even from the beginning, especially when rereading the books, and you kind of see her tragic arc, and for me it just worked really well. I loved the evil Sansa at the end. That was great too. All right, I'm running out of time. Next thing, the Daenerys stuff. The Grey Worm Missandei thing worked okay. I'm fine with it. If it goes somewhere, I care more. I like that they finally did the Jorah thing. I want to see more of Barristan being a badass. He's such a badass in the books. More Barristan badass. I don't know if that actor is capable of it. I hope he is, because I do want to see that. All right. All right, moving on. So, the other... Wait, 1, 2, 3... I'm running out of... I know I forgot something. Other than the Mountain and the Viper thing, let me just quickly say, I didn't care for the Beatles thing. I understood the point of the story. All right, we're out of time. Okay, let's move on to the next episode. Okay, let's talk about the Watchers on the Wall. In general, I found this kind of a fun episode, kind of exciting. The tactics were all over the place with me. Sometimes it would be like, why are they taking so long just to show the giants pull the gate out? It was unnecessary, because why were they doing cinematic effect? I understood why they did it. But that being said, then finally, here comes the oil dropping on the mammoth. And I was watching with someone who had not read any of the books, and he was already complaining about how come they haven't dropped it yet. And I didn't really have an answer other than what I'm pretty sure is the cinematic reason. So I guess I understand that. I just feel like I would have liked to see a little bit more of Jon Snow really showing that he's smart and not just essentially saying the obvious things. I mean, sure, when you compare it to the other two leaders, which I think was kind of the point, it's also kind of relevant. I mean, you see the Alliser Thorne, who's kind of the badass, but he's also kind of an ass. So it kind of has an interesting parallel with other jerks that we've seen, because we've always seen him at odds with Jon Snow, and he kind of gives a sort of an excuse for his behavior, and do I buy it? I mean, I buy that he doesn't really like Jon Snow, but wants to use him because he doesn't want everybody to die. But on the other hand, if Jon Snow just happened to fall off the wall while they were defending it, it would be like, well, whatever. That's one more problem I don't have to worry about. And you compare that with, Janos Slynt, who is just a coward, and of course, outside of the really secure areas that he's had of like being empowered, like when he was head of the Gold Cloaks in King's Landing, he was never in any danger. Now that he's in danger and he actually has to think about things and actually has to strategize, well, forget about it. I thought that was really clever what they did, where Gren came up instead of like, oh yeah, they need you to, sir, they need your extra smart brain and your brilliant mustache. Oh, it's great. You don't have a mustache? Oh no, you do. It's just coming in so well. Yeah, so that was good. Of course, it was kind of frustrating in that, they killed off Gren and Pip just as they're sort of starting to give them any kind of characterization. In the books, they aren't killed off, and I don't really know if it makes any difference in the books or the show, for that matter, but it seemed like they were basically just giving us a little bit more out of them so that we would care more when they died. Okay, I'm pretty sure that is exactly what happened. We care when they're holding off against the giant with, swords. Why don't you use daggers? I mean, come on, it's a giant. Don't they have anything longer? Pikes, spears, halberds. There's so many swords in my Dungeons and Dragons weapons and armor compendium that you could use for that. And, short swords, whatever. Probably just didn't even think of that. I think that they should have thought of that, because I think it would have just made sense. Anyway, I thought the choreography in this episode was really great. I love the Alliser Thorne Tormund fight, even if I thought, come on, really? Oh, it's such a cop-out the way they ended that, where they basically both didn't die. And I understand because they don't want to kill either of them, but I just thought it was a little bit of a cop-out. Of course, the Jon Snow Thenn one was great. I love the axe versus sword stuff. Of course, finally, when you actually see Ghost come out, I was like, oh, wow. Finally, when he had the key, it was like, is that Aemon or Ghost? It's got to be Ghost, right? Aemon doesn't have a secret weapon or something. So, I was right. It was Ghost, of course, and that made the most sense. And I also understand why it's expensive to use Ghost. So I can't really complain about that too much. It's the limitations of the show. But it was cool to see him. And it was sort of interesting how we had this kind of mini arc of the Thenn cannibal guy who basically has just been a jerk forever. And then Jon Snow kills him after getting a face full of anvil. And that that may be the most unbelievable part of this episode, which is crazy considering we have the giant with the awesome arrow and the wall made out of ice and magic and everything. Of course, people looking into birds, and yet he smashed his face on the anvil and he looked, the still pretty boy Jon Snow. So that when he looks at him, he's like, if his face was all broken, I'd probably shoot him. But how am I going to do it now? I also did like how they had the boy. They set it up pretty well. I mean, it was a little obvious if you were familiar at all with story conventions. But I feel like people who don't know that kind of stuff, who don't really get into stories and narrative conventions and devices, probably like, oh no, you're great, blah, blah, blah. I liked it. I liked the little nod the kid gave, like, bro, nice. Yeah, she killed people. People I knew. So that worked, I guess. I mean, it was a little bit different in the book. I can't hate the way they did this. It's fine, I suppose. Having an entire episode about one thing, I think it's an okay way to do it, because you can sort of focus on characters. I think that was the real flaw of this episode. You didn't have quite enough of that. You had some cool scenes, but not enough that I thought was really useful. I wanted to see more. You had so much time. They had some great showing of some of the minor characters who then died. A little bit of Alliser Thorne and a little bit of Janos Slynt, just showing he's just a horrible coward. Yes, those are good. We got some good stuff with Sam. Yeah, but I wanted to see more. I wanted to see more character stuff and not just battle stuff. That was one of the great things about the Blackwater episode, is that it was just filled with all these side character moments that, I don't know, I think that made the episode better. Now, of course, it sets up a crazy season finale. I don't even know what's going to happen. I have a pretty good idea, but I mean, the way they ended this episode, I was like, they got to end it in the way I'm thinking, which if you have read the books, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, I'm not going to say. Oh, we're out of time. So it's the perfect place to wrap up. So I'm going to say that I did like the episode, and I also liked The Mountain and the Viper. I guess if I were to have to judge it, I would say there were some really strong parts in The Mountain and the Viper. And the battle was both good and bad. It worked the way I would expect it to work in terms of thematically. I thought the choreography was a little lacking, and it was brutal as it needed to be, essentially, maybe a little bit more than it needed to be, but it was fine. In general, I thought the Sansa storyline was great, except for the Peter Baelish stuff, which I already mentioned. The Theon stuff worked pretty well. The Arya stuff was, of course, just fantastic. And the Daenerys stuff was, okay. And, of course, this last episode, I also feel mixed on it. I mean, it works in some ways, but not in others. There was some great choreography, some great just action moments that was fun to see. On the other hand, like I said, I would have liked to see more characterization. It also seemed kind of like it had an anticlimactic ending. Like, oh, he's going to go out to see Mance now? Okay. I mean, that was just sort of, I mean, someone, like I said, the guy I was watching with, he was like, what? Is that what happens? Like, no. Anyway, I think that about wraps it up for today. I've got other reviews I gotta film, so I will see everybody next week, and I'll probably have a little bit longer that week, so I should actually have time to really get into what I assume is going to be a really packed season finale. 15 extra minutes. It's on Sunday. I'm really looking forward to it. All right. Thanks for stopping by.